Hi, there is this Stop Killing Games initiative. It is basically about once you have been sold a game, or this can be also applied to software in my opinion, the companies can just shut down their products at any time. And this is not just I paid for it and I'm going to use it forever mentality. This is not about abusing the companies or abusing the products. It is the opposite. The companies are abusing the customers. So you are purchasing a game with a $60 price tag. That means you are going to be able to use it, right? At least as long as you don't change anything. Like you are not going to expect it to be running in Windows 15. You're not going to expect it to be running on a different platform. You agree that servers can shut down in a future point of time. But in the last years, what we are seeing has nothing to do with these. Company just makes a sequel and just shuts down all of the servers to the prior games. They can just decide a 1-month-old game can be deleted from the internet. They can just revoke licenses to drive up new game sales. They can just end support for your specific country just because they decided PlayStation Network does not work in your country anymore. It is now somehow normal if you don't have internet access, you can't even play your single player games because they cannot verify your license. If company servers goes for maintenance, it is expected for your also single player game to not work. And Stop Killing Games is mostly about the end of life support of these products. It is an EU and UK petition. This is just to start the conversation with the governments. It is like saying, hey, there is a problem, let's talk about this. So the main goal is saying that, hey, developers, hey, publishers, just make it clear that you have an end of life for this game. Or like I said, in my opinion, this should be applied to any software too. When you are purchasing the product, you should be able to see the end of life date. And if you are purchasing it, if it is still a purchase of a product, it is not a renting of a product, then after the company part ends its support, the offline parts of the game should still be able to function. You should not lock me out of my product remotely. I'm also developing my own games. I learned so many things in the last 6 years about legal stuff and technical stuff. I published 2 small mobile game projects, but I know what I should be expecting as a developer and what I should be expecting as a consumer too. And Stop Killing Games is actually good for the developers too. There's lots of spams and scams from lots of small and big companies. It just feels like they are doing whatever they want. They can just start it, end it. I cannot compete with them. Of course, people should decide with their wallets, but we shouldn't default to that. We have laws for a reason. This is not that much further from saying, oh, people should decide with their wallets when they are getting scammed. Yeah, they should do that, but also shouldn't we protect people? And when anyone is allowed to do whatever they want, this is just going to get way much worse because companies are built on making more profit. At the end of the day, shareholders even can sue the companies for making decisions that are going to lose the company money. So the whole system is built on top of money. When they see that they can make more money, they are going to keep making more money. This is why we have health regulations, consumer laws. If you allow this kind of behavior, it is going to be the only behavior at the end of the day that is going to be done because it is the behavior that is going to be making the most money. And at the end of the day, indie developers, including me, this can be a hobby for us, this can be an art style for us, but if I'm going to sell you something, there are laws for how that sale can be and how that product can be. So anytime anyone is opening up their wallets for a product purchase, it now doesn't matter who are the two sides. Laws are applied to everyone. It doesn't matter if I'm an indie developer or a company. And it is not that hard to plan ahead actually. There are already lots of policies on these platforms outside of the laws and regulations. You cannot just apply with any random project you have to the Apple, Google Play, Steam. It is going to get rejected if it is not fitting their policies, and those policies actually mostly protect the platform and consumers. There's lots of reading and thinking to do. So it is better for everyone to know how long this product is going to be available to play, because you can accidentally purchase the product at the end of the life. It can be announced the next week that it is going to shut down the servers in 2 months. Maybe you did purchase the product in a sale, then your life got in the way, it can happen, then a year later you are just opening up your game, then you are seeing an error that the servers are unavailable. Anyway, what I want to actually talk about here is this is not that hard to implement. It is very easy to let people play all of the single player parts of the games because you are actually getting out of your way to add a server check, license check to that game. That is something you did. It was not necessary for the game to be played. So that is the most nonsense part. It should be actually illegal to remotely log out someone from their game. And some games mandatorily do the server checks. They require an online connection at all times without actually having that many online elements in there. Just because there's some event going on, some points are calculated online, or there are some in-game purchases that you cannot make obviously offline, the game requires you to stay connected. That doesn't make sense to me as a consumer and also as a developer. Just don't load those panels. Most games have all the files, all the maps, all the characters in them. them already. Also, most of the time, all of the algorithms about NPC is already loaded. Any inventory items you have, any calculations, damages, anything is mostly locally loaded already. Because anytime a game wants some data that is just going to be used by you, that doesn't include any multiplayer functionality, it is not going to always ask the server every millisecond, oh, what was in my inventory, oh, what was in my inventory. It is not going to do that. It is going to be loaded from the server and synced, but then you don't have to keep asking the server if nothing has changed. Of course, you can ask if something has changed, but that is about the game design. Like in a racing game, your car inventory doesn't have to be loaded up from the server every single time. Of course, if the server is available, let's check it, save it to your account. Maybe there's going to be some gifts or drops or some loots. Of course, include those in your game if you want to. But when I just want to play a race in my computer, a map has already loaded into my computer. Already my cars are there, my inventory, there is a local backup there. Or you can have a local copy because that is how the game works while it's running. Anyway, if I'm offline, just use the same old info. Why do you need to lock me out? Actually, I know why you lock me out, because you're checking if I am cheating or something, right? Because that could mean I am not purchasing your in-app content, right? I can be changing my inventory while I'm offline. Well, I think that shouldn't concern you that much what I'm doing on my computer. I'm not saying you should allow everyone to do whatever they want. Of course, protect your own products, your profits, but while doing that, you're just taking away my ability to play it offline. Maybe just don't include this many checks there. So how developers and companies can approach the multiplayer problem? There are multiple ways. It just depends on the game design, obviously. Some games are co-op, or they can be just played with friends in lobbies with peer-to-peer connections. These games can be played without server connections already. And if someone really likes your game, they are going to find ways to create lobbies and connect to their friends, maybe with IPs, maybe with creating local networks, to be able to play your game after maybe your server lobbying support ends. Because like I said, you can just design your game to be hosted locally in a computer. It is a great option to have. Another option is deleting the multiplayer completely, because obviously these companies are not just going to publish their server codes. Well, some games actually publish their server-side code because it is just part of the game that you are just playing with your friends. But most companies, I think, are not going to do that. So if they are not going to design their game in a way that it can be hosted locally, and if they are going to shut down all of the multiplayer functionality completely, then this has to be stated in the purchase time. This is not too much to ask. All online services ends at this time, so you are renting this game for 3 years maybe. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because most companies are panicking right now. They are lobbying against this, but most people supported this initiative because this is how it's supposed to be. Like, this makes sense. Actually, they already achieved the initial goal. There is now 1.3 million signatures there. They need a little bit more signatures to make sure all of the signatures are real. So go ahead and check out the Stop Killing Games website from the link in the description. By the way, this gets worse if you more think about it. All of these sports games out there is a new version every single year. They are selling in-app purchases there. So they are making all these tons of money, and the next year it is just gone. Yes, people really should stop paying for these things. But it is very hard for an indie company to just go ahead and make some sports games because there are lots of licensing done on the other sides with the third parties. I think that is also why Guitar Hero stopped publishing new games. I wasn't even looking out for Guitar Hero games. There were just lots of them everywhere. And then they still run out of money to license more music, I guess. So those kinds of things cannot be done with indie developer studios. You can't actually generate any alternatives to these kinds of things. You cannot vote with your wallet because there are not that many alternatives to sports games. So something else has to be changed here. Maybe just the wording, like I said, just the renting part can change, and that can be enough. I am hoping for a better future, but it seems like every year we are just getting further apart from that future. If you liked the video, please subscribe, and thank you for listening.